Hi, everybody, and welcome to another episode of SEOs Getting Coffee. It should really be SEOs Getting Any Drink, considering that we always have a mix of things. We have a wonderful guest joining us today, Tazmin. Tazmin is a confidence and well-being coach. I'll let her introduce herself. But what strikes me as important to say is that Tazmin, she is an area of zen. I absolutely love having her around because every time I speak to her and meet her face to face online anywhere, she basically brings this really lovely, calming energy. And I'm super hyperactive. So for me, that's amazing. So, Tasman, great to have you here talking about well being and ambition in particular. Do you want to introduce yourself?
So thank you so much. And yeah, I love the whole Zen thing. It's taken work. I didn't come out of a box like that. But yeah, so background has been in tech from ever since I left education, be it in development or data integrity or whatever it was that I was working in. But I always found myself gravitating towards the roles that included learning and development. And when I was at Argos doing my SEO stint, there was redundancies there after lockdown, and I thought, if not now, then when? If I really enjoy learning and development that much, why not? Why do I not just dive in? And that's what I did. So signed myself up for an ICF accreditation, did that, and launched the business. As any coaches out there will know, being a coach and running coaching business are two very, very different things. A bit of a steep learning curve, and just enjoying myself in this part of my career. So yeah, that's me. I do coaching, as you know, podcasting, as you know, and corporate training. I'm enjoying all
Yeah.
of it.
Brilliant. We'll pop a link to the podcast as well. It's a brilliant podcast, so I would definitely recommend anybody to listen to it. And it has a lot of really useful career advice and great guests. So we'll put a link in. Um, so today we're talking about something that obviously is a topic that's close to your heart because I kind of have the feeling that you've struck that balance, which is the balance between ambition and well-being. Are they like contradictory? If they're not, how can you actually manage both? So my first question really for you, Tasman, is what is your, so you started talking about your personal story, and I kind of have a feeling that there's a bit of that in there as well, kind of this, is it a balance? How did you strike a balance?
I, they're not separate. Absolutely, they're not separate. As you and everybody will probably already know this. They're not separate. And I guess I, like many people, fell into a job because that's what was there. There was less talk about passion, ambition, and purpose. Then, you got a job and you worked. And I had no real concept of having a career until I would say in my 30s, when I had my two children. I'd grown up always thinking I was quite poor at education. And I remember with my second one, I was about to head back to work, went to the local college and said I'd like a refresher course. Ended up on a degree course. I mean, that's another story for another day. But that taught me the power of belief, the power of consistency. I'd always been a hard worker, so that wasn't anything new to me. And I went from being a poor learner to managing getting a first in computer science with two children. So for me, I think a lot of it is knowing yourself innately. Self-awareness is huge. But in terms of is it a balance? One feeds the other. If you are physically and mentally well, that will give you the fuel to boost your success, your ambition. And I see it as, four cornerstones. You need that physical and mental well being to give you the fuel. You need to have a vision of what you want. That can change over time, and it doesn't have to be crystal clear, but at least make a start of understanding what it is that you want from life, because that'll make sure that you're in the right direction. You have to have confidence to take the steps to move, from that vision to actually goals and working through it. And then without happiness and without well-being, you're not going to be very productive. And I use the example of supposing you have the best productivity system in place, and you're about to sit down and do some deep work, and you have a spat with your child because you've not given that relationship time. You sit down, you're not going to be productive. So all of them feed each other, and it is a balance, and it's about being fluid, because you can create that balance on paper, and then if your boiler breaks down, well, that's throwing equations out of the air. So it's constantly checking in with yourself, with your life, with your stress levels, and adjusting. It's like sitting on one of those big yo-yo balls. You're constantly feeling what's going on and where do I have to shift.
Yeah, it's interesting what. Sorry, Sean, did you want to say something?
No, I was just going to kind of bring in there. I think it's interesting how, like, obviously, this relates and kind of comes in, and we're talking about this like in the sense of the SEO industry, right? And I was just going to ask, Tazmin, do you think that the SEO industry is particularly draining for people that work within it?
Yeah.
And if it is, why do you think that might be?
There's two lots of drains, if we're going to talk about it like that. There's any inner drains that you have, and you have your external. And you can never really do much about the external. Yes, you can shift industries, but if you can understand yourself and understand where those internal drains are, you can then, and know what your needs are, you can put yourself in the best possible space. Yes, the SEO industry has, it's fast paced. It's constantly changing. There's a lot of competition. There's a lot of, social posts sometimes aren't always nurturing and helpful.
Or
But you go
true.
to
I mean,
many,
some of them are not true.
Mm.
And it's, I can't change that. I can't change anything about, I can't make people be different. I can't make industries. I can try and have an influence. But again, having an influence, if you're not energized, if you're not sure of who you are, the influence you're going to be able to have is minimal. Whereas if you can stand your ground, here I am in the SEO industry, albeit in the learning and development space, in the second half of my 50s, not a typical SEOer by any means, but I know who I am, I know what I believe in, I speak my truth, and I speak it with hopefully grace and dignity. And I feel that, through the podcast as well, that there is an element of, me being able to help others. But if I was going to be, angry, complaining, taking on people's opinions of myself, not knowing how to validate myself, that influence would be diminished.
Yeah, and it's I mean, I agree. There is this kind of a big part of it is knowing yourself and that kind of the inner aspects, because whichever industry you're in, if you don't have that bit sorted, you're gonna struggle. I mean, but I also agree with Sean, and one of the things that I've been thinking about is that SEO in particular can be a little bit inducing to those issues because of some of the stuff that you already mentioned, like it's competitive, really fast paced, the algorithm updates, it's performance based. This is it. It's kind of like, because you're working for very sometimes tangible and measurable results, there's this pressure to perform. But I think that's kind of in marketing, and all of
It's
that can
also
lead.
Yeah, sorry. I mean, it's also the like the amount of screen time thing. I think that's the things like obviously like
Yeah.
especially tech SEO, but SEO in general is that you've got so much screen time that you're working sometimes 8 hours per day, sometimes if not more, which obviously puts it in the same region as obviously web developers and coders and yeah, all types of tech workers that spend a lot of time on screens. And I think we do share in the SEO industry, share a lot with those types of industry in the tech industry, because yeah, just from the sheer amount of time that we put in of obviously just going down these rabbit holes and trying trying to find solutions to things and looking at data and whatnot, right? So yeah, I think it's really interesting how that kind of that it's almost kind of like it provides that feedback loop, doesn't it? Is that you end up just doing more and more and more, and you get lost in that. How can someone break that cycle, Tazmin?
So I want to go back to a few things that you just said.
Mm-hmm.
If I put those variables into my own business, a lot of the time I'm working with people on helping them understand themselves and do their inner work so that they get better at being them. Tell me, where's the tangible in that? It's really difficult for me to be able to say, oh, you'll be able to double your productivity or earn X amount more money, because that's not necessarily true. They'll be calmer and more confident and be better equipped at living life. But there's nothing tangible in that. But that doesn't mean that it's not good work and that I'm going to stop, because I won't. The other thing you said about is screen time. I spend so much of my time in front of my laptop, and yeah, I work hard. I got up this morning at 4:15. And for me, that's partly because I get up for my prayers and I said my prayers, and the cut-off time, because it's between the beginning of sunrise to the end of sunrise. I timed it right at the end. Sunrise was at 4:35, so by that time I'd finished my prayers. And between 4:45 and 6:45, I was working, because house is quiet. That's what works for me. And I like doing that chunk of deep work then. And then my husband got up, and it's going to sound like a really weird combination of things, because I came down with him and made his cup of tea and made his packed lunch because he goes off to work on Tuesdays and Thursdays. And I get joy out of that. So so everything's about energy. Getting up in the morning for my prayers energizes me. Doing that deep work energizes me. Spending that hour with my husband chit-chatting while I'm making his sandwich energizes me. It gives me joy. It gives me happiness. And that's what every part of your day, if you can find a way of making it happy and energizing. And sometimes it is mind shift changes. So if I say, oh, I have to go for a walk today, to I get to go out for a walk. I know it's said time and time again over the internet, but it's true. When you put that power of making a choice in the equation of your life, it's hugely empowering. So how do you break that cycle of SEO being largely outcome based? I mean, you have a choice. You don't have to work in SEO. That's not for you. And it wasn't for me. I liked the industry. I wanted to serve the industry, but I made a choice. And yeah, I was 54 when I made that choice. A lot of my friends were just saying, right, if we work another 10, 15 years, we get to the finish line of retirement. I could have done that and got to the finish line of retirement. Instead, I chose the much harder route of starting a business at this age. But for me, it was, I don't want to retire, because then what? But I'm going to spend the next, whatever it is, 10 years building up a coaching business. So when I'm at retirement age, I can then choose to do less of the work I love,
Yeah.
rather than the amount. So now I know it's, a lot of hard work, a lot of screen time, a lot of uncertainty. but this belief that it will pay off in the end. So going back to your original question, what can they do? Well, they can choose to leave the industry, number one. Number two, they can choose to learn how to validate themselves. So when you are seeking validation from the outcome, seeking validation from how your manager speaks to you, things like that, if you don't have your own sense of self-validation, then it's very difficult because you're just taking on theirs. And that's, again, where that inner work comes. So spending time to be physically well. And this is your whole nutrition, exercise, sleep. We neglect sleep. Although I got up early, I also went to bed early. Then you've got your mental well-being. And this is about being happy in your relationships and giving yourself some space to read and to write and to nurture yourself. And last Brighton, the Brighton before, I used the concept of the algorithm to explain all of this so that we focus on other algorithms. What about our own? Because we too have inputs, we too have processes, and we have outputs. So if we look at the outputs, I'm physically drained, I'm not sleeping well, I'm not satisfied with my job, I'm not progressing enough, whatever it is you're not happy about, go back to your inputs. Are you eating well? Are you staying hydrated? Are you exercising? Are you looking after your emotional consumption? So what are you reading? What are you watching? What are you listening to? Because if those things aren't nurturing you, you're going to be in a difficult position. Who are you keeping company with? Are these people predominantly people who are inspiring you to be better? Or is it spending a lot of time with work colleagues, albeit online, moaning about the company and the industry and your manager? It's not going to work. And then look at your processes as well. So you're going to ask something?
No, I was just going to say, I think that's one of the kind of key things. I think is like the positive kind of networks. I think is that, and I think it's one of the things that we see quite often is that you have these like negative kind of networks that obviously, like we mentioned at the start, that promote. You're not even sure if it's true or it might be on social media or it's that kind of that hustle lifestyle, I guess, and that kind of that ambition of like, flaunting success and whether it's a fake success or whether it's like who knows, but on social media it's presented as this is the truth, right? And a lot of people buy into that and then they join those networks, compared to obviously joining a positive network which doesn't put those I guess those kind of more superficial goals and ambition. They tend to try to join joining networks that obviously promote different goals, which are more kind of to do and aligned with actually, well, I'm going to put myself at the top of that hierarchy rather than putting wealth or superficial goals, a new car or whatever it might be, right? So I think that's quite an important one, I think.
And would you say, one of the things kind of connected to that and coming back to this idea of ambition. So I have a feeling that ambition sometimes gets a bad rep because of the fact that it can be misunderstood as a hustle culture, a toxic culture, somebody who just wants to, it's the Machiavellian kind of, the goal justifies the means type of thing. How would you, Tazmin, for you, when I say ambition, what's your kind of feeling about it? Is it a bad thing to have ambition? And when is it a bad thing?
So do you mean financial? Do you mean financial ambition?
Yeah, just ambition in life, to achieve your goals, to achieve finances, to achieve a career progression, kind of that drive forward to just achieve. Because, for example, in the US, thinking about kind of the cultural differences, in the US, ambition is something that is regarded, I get the feeling, I haven't done research, as a positive thing. Whereas when I came to the UK, one of the things that I've kind of noticed is that, sometimes being ambitious is equated with being cutthroat almost. Would you say that? I mean, it might be just my feeling.
I come from a family of very, very ambitious, very driven people. My grandfather, he was orphaned at 8, and he would go around before school to different people's houses, and because we lived in East Africa then, and grate coconut for women who didn't want to do that messy job, and made his money, made enough pocket money. He was probably one of the richest kids at school because he had this stack of money. But so I have no problem with people wanting to earn more. I've got ambitious financial goals, but I also have ambitious relationship goals. I have, we have 3 grandchildren, and we don't see a lot of them. 2 of them live in Dubai, and they come here in the summer because it's so hot in August there. I spend the rest of the year looking on Instagram for arty things that we can do together. For me, that's part of my ambition. I want them to really enjoy themselves while they're here. I want to be the best wife for my husband. It's about who do I want to be? And we think of goals as things that you want to get. We don't often think about who do I want to be? Yes, I want to be a successful coach. I want the podcast to go from strength to strength. I want to be able to go into corporates and help them with their training. I want to have the best dinner parties. I want family to come round and enjoy themselves. I want to be generous and giving and nurturing. I want to be able to hold my head up high when I walk around Brighton SEO with the hordes of people there. So I've got no problem with people having hugely ambitious financial goals. But if they think, for most of them, if they then neglect the energizing element of fulfilled relationships, they are reducing the power that they have to be able to go and seek those ambitious goals, financial goals.
Yeah.
Not everyone. It's a bit like if you say, I'm going to be really fit and strong, but you neglect your nutrition and focus on your exercise. It doesn't work. You need
Doesn't
both.
work, yeah.
You need your sleep.
Yeah, and it's interesting because as soon as I say ambition, and you were checking whether it's the financial one, and that's the thing. Everybody thinks that ambition is something that is inherently about what you can get, but it's not. It's not. I love your example of you are ambitious to have more family time. You're ambitious to kind of nurture yourself and who you are, and that's the thing. I agree with you. I think ambition can be misunderstood, and it's much wider than just the financial, and that's when it kind of starts going into well-being as well. So maybe that's a brilliant way of thinking about it. I think, Tazmin, thank you. That was great. Really, really
Another
good
way
stuff.
to look at it is that every goal that you have helps you become better at being you. So supposing you have the ambition of having a great relationship with your partner, what does that mean? What do you have to be to have a great relationship with your partner? You will, need to learn how to be more patient, compromise, empathize, be a better listener, be a better communicator, be more thoughtful. These are all qualities. Then if you think about what you have to be a better leader, they're not dissimilar. So any goal that you have is teaching you how to be better at being you. And whether it is, me hosting a great dinner party, okay, it's me being aware of what other people need, being aware of their dietary requirements, about their timetabling, how many kids are coming, what do I need to put on the table, what else will make it a great evening. It's being aware, it's being, fulfilling that need. It's about having my energy raised, because if somebody comes over for dinner, I can make everything perfect, but if I'm down in the dumps, nobody's going to enjoy themselves. It's not right. So even when you are in a professional environment, if you're a team member, what does being a good team member mean? About helping each other, about looking out for what tasks need to be completed that week. Where are the deadlines? You've got a responsibility to the organization you're working for, to each other, to the manager to the team members. So I think it's, and I know that we're straying off the subject, the core subject a bit, but for me, goals is all about becoming better at being you.
Yeah, and that is connected to ambition, isn't it? Because that's how it starts. If you're ambitious, you need to kind of set goals for yourself, whatever they may be. And no, I think it's a great way of looking at it, and it's a good strategy. Talking about strategies and practices, like you were saying, it's important to sit down and understand what are your goals and what are your values. And I think that's both. You need to have both of those if you're going to be doing a balance between ambition and well-being, because as soon as, if you have an ambition and it doesn't align with your values, that's when problems kind of start rearing their ugly heads, because you find yourself into this Machiavellian situation, which I think is not, that's just the wrong way to do it. I'm just mindful of time as well. So one kind of final question that I had on my list, I don't know if Sean's has anything else. Can employers actually help, particularly in SEO, that we said it's quite fast, it can be draining. What is the responsibility of the employer actually? What can employers do to ensure that they nurture the ambition of their employees while at the same time looking after their well-being?
I think one is that they can do it for themselves. If they are visibly seen to being mindful of themselves holistically, and say, talk about what is it that they did at the weekend. And, genuinely, if they look after themselves holistically and talk about it, that will almost create that culture within. So that's the first one. More open conversations about it would be another. And I think with one of the things that really worked when I used to lead teams is one of the first things I would do is get to know the individual. What is their view of life? What's their motivation? What is it that they're looking to gain, to work towards? So some of it would be understanding them as an individual, and some of it would be, for them to say, I really want to get more into development, or I really want to be able to lead a team. And then when we got the strategy and the goals of the organization, I would sit down, and it would take some time and think, okay, here is an opportunity for that person who wants to lead a team to look after this part of the project. Or here is a piece of work that requires some coding, and that person who wants to get into coding and development, there's an opportunity for them to do that piece of work. And then I'd sit down with them and say, look, I've taken on board what you said, and here is what is to be done. And I feel that there's a really great opportunity for you to develop in this area. And what it did was, one, they felt seen and heard. if your team member feels seen and heard and understood and that you're looking out for them, that builds that trust in the relationship, which will just give you so much mileage. They are then going to work hard at that particular thing. So it's a win for them, it's a win for me, it's a win for the organization. Because for me, I remember when I was leading a team of data analysts, when I was data integrity manager, I used to say to them, I actually don't want you in my team for more than a couple of years. I want you to move on.
That's really interesting.
And it worked. And it worked. And bizarrely, I remember, and this was one of my few, my earlier roles as a team leader. I remember saying to my manager when we had our managers meeting that the team need more work. They're bored. But I don't understand why, because we weren't bored 3 months ago. We had lots of work and nothing has really changed. And he said, it has. It's the way they are as a team, the mindset, because it had created space, because they were so keen to get that work done, because they were engaged, they were motivated. And we ended up, having a whole day spare. It's 20% increase.
Oh, wow,
so
that's
does
really
that answer
good.
your question?
Yeah, it does. It does answer my question. I think it's a really good example of how it works in practice. So, yeah, thank you. That's a good message. Sean, do you have any kind of final questions, or shall we move on to room
No, we can
404?
move. We can move on to room 404. Yeah, I'm really keen. Because Tazmin said that before we started recording, she said she's already had one prepared for us to go into room 404. So I'm really keen to find out what that is.
Yeah, just as a reminder, room 404 is a room where we put things that we want to kind of banish, sometimes never to be seen again, which means I kind of always think of it, maybe they go into 410 at that point. Or sometimes there's a bit of improvement that can be done and they can come out. So Tazmin, tell us, what would you like to banish into our room 404?
I would like to banish ageism.
Oh,
because
yes.
I found recently I was putting a new page on my website which was about the talks I'd given, and I found the old audio. So it's almost 5 years since I gave my first talk at Brighton, and it wasn't even a video; it's just an audio, and it was about the importance of age diversity in SEO teams. And re-listening to it, I'm now even more passionate about that. SEO teams in general are very young. And for them, this sense of perspective sometimes isn't quite there. New update, you think the world's come to the end, and it hasn't. And I feel that there is a lot of opportunity for I'm going to say the elder generation to add to that, you know what, it's okay. Unless you're doing life-threatening work, no one died.
Yeah,
Life will
yes,
still
exactly.
continue. So ageism,
Yeah.
and in the community that I belong to, we have a really nice word for people who are above 65, and we call them seniors. We don't say, oh, this is the older group or the elder group. We call them seniors. And seniors almost creates this atmosphere of they're above me. I can learn from them, rather than they have nothing left to give me.
Yeah,
So
elderly, like.
ageism, yeah.
I think that's a great addition, and I think that one's gonna probably make its way very quickly to 410 because nobody wants it out. I mean, I completely agree, and I know exactly what you're talking about, and it's a lovely thing to kind of end on. We should have much less ageism than we do in the industry, that's for sure. Tazmin, is there anything else that you want to kind of say to invite people? We're going to invite them to your podcast and to the website, obviously. Is there anything else that you want to share with us? For example, what I did forget. Can you share with? Do we have a drink? I mean, this is like SEOs Getting Coffee. Where's the drink? Where's the drink?
I have homemade elderflower cordial.
Oh, nice, nice.
Made
Oh,
by
I
my
wish I had
daughter,
that. I
not
just
me,
have water.
not me. No.
Oh, nice, nice. Well done. I have a Christmas mug with some water in it. I have no idea what this
Excellent.
mug is. I'm at my sister's. It's a bit of a interesting one, colourful.
Oh yeah, we're all off the coffee today, I think. So yeah,
Yes.
maybe we need to start rethinking this name. SEOs Getting Coffee, Emina.
Yeah, yeah. We've been talking about it. Quite
SEO
a
Getting
bit,
Drinks.
actually. Yeah, getting
But yeah,
drinks. Yeah. So Tazmin, is there anything that else that you'd like to say to say goodbye to people? And
Gosh, I think one thing I would like to say is that a lot of the time we think that that inner work is hard. It's not that. I'm not saying it's a walk in the park, but it's doable. You can chip away at it. It doesn't have to be, you know, a lengthy process. It can be much smoother. And I think sometimes we give names to things and make them more important than they actually are. I never heard of the term imposter syndrome when I was growing up. You try something new, you have a go, it doesn't quite go well, you pick yourself up and you try again. And I think this term imposter syndrome is just making it bigger and scarier than it needs to be, or should be. So that's what I'd like to leave everyone with. That don't make it more powerful than you. You're far more powerful than it.
oh, that's a lovely thing to end on.
Positive, yeah, positive to end on. That's great.
Yeah, definitely. Right. Well, thank you so much to everybody listening. And it was absolutely amazing having you, Tazmin. As I said, I love speaking to you. It's always kind of a very nice, supportive, validating experience when I speak to you, which speaks to all of the work that you've done on yourself as well, which is wonderful. So thank you everybody for listening, and see you next time.
Thanks everyone. Thanks Tazmin.
Bye.
See you later.